Recording. Thank you. Yes. So I hope we do have your permission to record. Is that okay with all of you? Give me some thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you very much. And yes, it is June. It's in the middle of June, and we are again here with another edition of the Biomimicry Association webinar series. And today we have a very special guest, somebody who I met for the first time a month ago, and I'm very happy I did. And as you all know, his name is Hugo Araujo, right? And he's from Mexico and from Colombia. And today he's going, and of course, Hugo is one of the pioneers of biomimicry, right? And he has the special gift of also being a techie, knowing a lot about coding and programming, right, Hugo? And drawing. So he brings a lot of added value to his work. And today we will have the privilege of listening to him, and he'll be talking to us about how can we curate knowledge-based ecosystem based on the biomimicry thinking. Correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Hugo is welcoming questions anytime. So whenever you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand and to pose your question. If you don't want to ask it, put it in the chat and we will ask it on behalf of you. Before I continue talking, I'm going to stop and I'm going to pass the floor to Hugo. Welcome, Hugo, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Liliana, and thank you to the Biomimicry Switzerland team for this event. I think it takes some organization and really nice people that I can see around. And it will be a pleasure to hold this space together, but also to try to learn from each other. I think I'm gonna try to give some insights for a conversation. But let's hope that those who have already some questions and see the right moment to answer one or the other one, then please let me know. And I want to start by sharing my screen. I'm going to share the full screen so I don't forget to come back. But please let me know if you are at sometimes not seeing what I'm showing. So this is 7 Vortex, and my objective of today is that you can understand what a ecological interaction is, and also about the energy exchange. So for that, I'm gonna take you into a journey that it goes through the biomimicry thinking process. And the biomimicry thinking process has its own like pathways to do it. So the first one, just for you to know, I'm a biomimicry professional. I'm part of the second cohort of biomimicry professionals from 2011 to 2013. And we studied 16, and we came from 4 different disciplines. So designers, engineers, biologists, and business. And my special side is on business. So I came from the social innovation business and trying to boost the sustainability side into a more resilient system, until I realized that nature is about the ecosystems. So the first thing that we need to do about biomimicry, and this is, I believe, one of the most important things that I learned in this formation, are the essential elements. So the essential elements are 3: ethos, reconnect, and emulate. And they are very important because sometimes you tend to use biomimicry just for no matter what. But part of our internal code of kind of reciprocity or trying to trust with each other is that we come from the ethical part of applying biomimicry. So we try to not to support conditions conducive to death or really like enhancing problems, but rather trying to find the right solutions. So then we have the life principles, and these life principles works as a design criteria. So for example, if I was building software, or what I did is to build a knowledge ecosystem software. So I was using this list, like a checklist, to try to get as close as I could, because there is not just as a metric, we are not there yet, but to try to follow the patterns that nature is giving us in terms of biology. So these principles were created by the founders of the Biomimicry Institute, Dana and Janine. And this is what we deeply learn and apply as a biomimicry professionals. So we go to different, in this case, it was 2 years in 7 different ecosystems, and or more, because there were some sub ecosystems around. And we kind of iterate these principles. And in my case, I couldn't have enough, and I went to live into the wild in the Yucatan Peninsula to try to see if they were actually happening or not in nature. So what I thought is, I need to go on to live into a healthy ecosystem. So I know how a healthy ecosystem looks like, because I was living in Mexico City. And Camille, my wife, showed me this small, beautiful place in Mexico. And we went there with the family, and we stayed there for about 4 years. And that was, meanwhile, I was studying biomimicry. So I really went deep into biomimicry, into the ecosystems. And just to give you an idea, my closest point of internet was at 38 kilometers away from there, if the storm were allowing us to have these meetings at that point. So let's go to the next one. And the next one is also about the biomimicry thinking itself. So we have a process, and this process, it is non-linear process. So we can go from one point to another one. And let me just go into this link so we can see it. And these are the kind of things that you can do and create on 7 vortex. So if we come to a presentation that is kind of complicated, or is a framework, then we can create a path of unfolding. So we can go into a design process 1 step at a time. So for example, the discover natural models is the first step that I did. So for me, it was important to know more about what it was surrounding me. In this case, we learn a lot about the Flamingo Nation that it is hosting in between 2 different communities of Mayans. And they come during a specific season in the year to nest there, but they come from different regions of the peninsula, of the Caribbean. So it is very impressive to see how they can coordinate, let's say, 50,000 individual trip with all the resources and the logistics. So they come 1 year before to analyze and to understand the land, and then they somehow organize themselves to be in the middle of the danger. So for example, there were 35 kilometers in between the 2 villages, and they were exactly in the middle. So those kind of things were interesting as a learning from what we were seeing there. And that's why we went into ecosystems. So then we abstract some biological strategies. In my case, I learned about the energy exchanges. So my question is, coming from business, if the market is working with money, so bringing the other question around, it is how nature works in terms of exchanges, what it exchanges actually. And I came to this aha moment when Dana was explaining us that in nature is about relationships, biological relationships are about energy exchanges. So these energy exchanges, when you see them, they are here. So for example, minus is predation. And I've been learning in business how to compete and how to be in war constantly. But in this case, when I learned it from a biological perspective, I realized that competition was losing my energy, and it was the worst combination for both. So I started to understand that the dynamics inside of an ecosystem are very important, because they are taking 2 sides. So it is not I affect you, but it's always we affect each other, and we have different perspectives. So my perspective on this relationship, it is we're creating this exchange. And if you want to thrive in an ecosystem in the longer term, you better go into a niche differentiation space where you can actually create collaborative relationships. Of course, you also create competitive relationships. They are part of the system, but they are expensive. So it is really up to like species and organisms to understand what is the right one. So we took this as energy exchanges as biological strategies, and we work with a specific taxonomy. So this taxonomy helps us to see where is the functionality that we are trying to understand. So process information or create community, maintain community, so cooperate, and then within the same species. That could be a really interesting strategy for humans, just to learn from other species how actually they have thrived by creating this superorganism idea. So I put some of the functionalities here that I wanted to do, and from here I wanted to define the context. So, well, my understanding is that I'm living in a planet with a climate change happening, and we needed to visualize in a simple way complex stories. We needed to connect solutions and to empower especially local perspectives. So by having this as other kind of functions in my mind, then we brainstormed in what to do. And we thought about education, health, supply chain, bioart, like the possibilities of application. From here, I went to integrate the life principles. So to see how this design was actually fulfilling the checklist that I showed you. And trying to, from my deep understanding and deep connection in nature, trying to best emulate from my knowledge, limited knowledge, of course, of what I'm doing. And so we brainstorm, we integrate life principles, and then we emulated the deep pattern. So how to visualize these biological relationships, but in an ecosystem, and using the graph theory of mathematics, Euler mathematics. Then I realized that there were some kind of mathematics behind artificial intelligence that are called graph theory or graph database. So I made a match in between what my deep pattern was, and I found the technology that was able to replicate it. So I was gathering the information with this filter in a way. And then I came back and tried to understand how I was doing it with the life principles. So I cannot break down products into benign constituents so far, but I think that do chemistry in water is still one of the problems of the industry. But I can apply different parts of the principles in different parts of the process, and not just to the technology, but to the business as well. So that allows me to be in full frequency with whatever is changing, and trying to keep adding positive value to the system. So what I did is this ecosystemic platform, which is a storytelling tool basically that helps us to bring this new element on the narrative that is based on biology and ecological interactions. So I don't know if until here there are some questions.
Yes, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. While you're thinking, I have one. So, oh, Michaela, go ahead. I saw your hand.
Yeah, I have one, Hugo. When you say that you abstract the deep principles, how do you do that? That to me is still sometimes a mystery. It's easy when you're talking about forms. How do you do it when it's about processes or systems?
Yeah, so in my case, for example, I was about to decide, we decided to take isolation, like geographic isolation in terms of living in a healthy ecosystem, in an ecotone, which is this bordering between the sea and the land, to see biodiversity at its best. So for me, understanding the life principle, it is how to be harmonious with nature. So you need to play with the rules of the context. You can deny the context and call it externality, or you can just understand that actually it exists and that our best shot is to be aligned with this, with life. So we can create conditions conducive to life for us as well, as part of a bigger ecosystem. So the planet being a metabolic being and trying to understand how to put things there. So when I came into abstracting this, then I think, in the internet. So I wasn't very techy. I was more into the non-connection when I was in the Yucatan, in El Cuyo. But then I said, well, if I want to use existing structures, then I better go into like high efficiency of energy and resources and use whatever is there. And by like these climbing trees that are not killing the host, but also this idea of Paul Hawkins as an immune system, the internet, how you can infuse certain flow that could actually bring a different input. So I think it's there one at a time, and trying to understand how you can actually make it better on what you can see, because there is not just one formula. So for example, in finance, they ask for a formula. It's more standards, but when you see nature, it's about diversity. So there are patterns, but they don't behave exactly as standards. There are different species in one ecosystem that they are all dealing with the same context. And in the best case scenarios, they are kind of working with each other. And all this is related to this principle. So whenever you understand ecosystems, then you are fully compliant with the life principles. And with superorganisms and like regenerative economics as well, I've seen it that they are based on living principles. So I think it's an interesting way to see it. Then I also developed a tool to try to have the vision in check in terms of perception of the integrants of the organization inside. But that is like a whole different story in terms of technology. So well, I'm gonna share the screen again, and I'm gonna finish this part. So as I said, essential elements like principles, biomimicry thinking. Then with this deep pattern, we started to see that instead of having n number of relationships, there are 9. And these 9 are, let me see if they're around here. It's part of the presentation that I want to give you, so, okay, they're not there. So these combinations. I was looking for a better vision, but this is helping us to understand the energy exchanges. And if you apply it to a market, I'm pretty sure that we will find at least interesting insights. But what if by creating this tool, I could enforce pioneers as a curation tool, communities as inspiration tool, and organizations as information system? So trying to bridge as collective intelligence platform by using life principles to connect the information around nature. That was the design intention of the tool. And if I can do it multi-generational as the monarch butterflies, then even better, because we are destroying as a faster pace than knowing about nature. So what if we can use all the sensors that we have around there and bring and connect some knowledge in a platform? But it has to have this intention, because if we keep relying on Facebook, which intention was to map girls, and in a school, it's kind of very difficult that the design could go farther than this intention design. As an art piece cannot go farther than the artist itself. So by using these natural patterns and by trying to do something beautiful, so attractive, its attraction was one of the main functions. How to create something locally attuned and that could be evolving to survive, that could have feedback loops, that would be modular and nested. Well, this is what you have in front, and it has been mapping different kinds of conversation around regeneration for more than 3 years now.
On that note, I have a quick question, and please forgive me if it's not a very, if it's an obvious one, but I want to put it forward. You talk about intention, and you talk about sales, and you talk about mapping the process of sales, as far as I understand. Now, how has this mapping changed your idea about selling, and what is the new intention that you would recommend us to have in order to approach cells in a different way or in the biomimicry way?
Yeah, so right now, exactly now, I'm working with this. Let me see if I have it here. This one. This is my working day of today. So in my case, I'm trying to understand. There is a MRA course happening with Ubiquity University and the UC and Kate Raworth is involved. So
What is MRA? Excuse me.
Master in Regenerative Action.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. So Master in Regenerative Action.
So I'm part of this conversation. I'm trying to understand how I can add value to them. So I put myself in the center as saying, well, this is who I am and who is around there. So I have this set of tools and with whom I have already exchanged in one way or another. So when I see the core courses, I change the name. So these are not the original names. It's just my working canvas. But Living Cities, Symbiotic Projects, Evolution Economy, that is more the donut economics with Kate Raworth, and Global Regeneration with Edward Mueller, Green Project Management with Joel Carboni, and Integral Cities with Marilyn Hamilton. So on the other side, Shelley and the core team, which are them, are working on what are the core competencies that you want to deliver after completing this program. So it's a discussion with two completely different dimensions, which is very difficult to connect. One way to connect it is just through a mind map. But the idea here is that this mind map is, you don't need scientific knowledge. A kid from El Cuyo, from the place that I was living, could be able to map an ecosystem there. So the idea is availability for everyone. And it is free. So you come here and then you put like one circle or the other, and then we start to see the core things as well in the core competencies. So when I connect is when I saw system regeneration as one of the components, but I say, okay, so this is what I add as a value. What I add is, this is a graphic that I was looking at. What I add is this layer of biological relationships, ecological interactions. And if we move the systemic narrative to an ecosystemic narrative, then we'll be one step closer to be aligned with, from biology with nature. So biology being this kind of like ecotone in between science, like soft and hard science. So it is very interesting because we can modulate one or many things in the tool on its own, but like using one tool that is from biomimicry there, and being able to see all this visually, and then to say, what are these neutral relationships that I mapped? And to me, those are the things that I'm not so good at and that I haven't worked with. So there is a big opportunity to start flowing there, but so far the change is not obvious. And I should underline it because I think I need to find out the way to add them value, and that we find a project that is win-win, because we don't need like positive one side and negative the other side, because that would be predation. So by knowing that they are going to be there, then we need to find out the best way for both to be there. And putting this relationship, sorry, I have it hidden here. So now I've moved into a different relationship. So it depends on exactly what I'm looking at. But this is the initial canvas that I needed for expressing myself in ecosystemic terms. And I think it is helping others to apply biomimicry without the need of going through all this complicated specific process, but just of mapping their perspective. And sometimes the richness is in the discussion of why is positive positive or why is positive negative? What do you think is that? How do you feel about that? And this conversation has led organizations to have a more convergent narratives. So in this case, I realized, there are many things where I can add value, specifically in this part, because we need it. And by doing this, we're going to be also doing biomimicry. And by the way, the theory U or U theory people, they're also mapping things in 7 vortex. And with all these actors, I already have some maps inside so some other vortex. So the conversation is already here. And this is something unique. So if we think about data as a new goal, what if we can connect knowledge and, for example, indigenous knowledge with scientific knowledge? So, and I think that happens through the visual world. So not just like we were first visuals in many ways. So this is a whole collective intelligence platform. So for example, you can come here and this is a conversation of this MRA as well, and trying to understand like what are the next steps, the projects that are involved, the value, the hope that we have for this group to have, and the feeling. So all this is already connected in a way that is a graph. So now I'm thanks to thinking in life principles, then now I'm kind of ready to adapt to the next step, whatever it is, and it comes into the map.
Thank you. We have a question. First, in the chat, we have Mani, who is asking life-centered design Mao. Is it anything that you spoke similar to life-centered design Mao?
Yeah, totally. I think I was with Johnny Freedom, I think is his name. And I saw him in an interview that Daniel Wall did with him with Maori people for the Maori Donut. So I went with this guy and I offered to show them how to work a little bit with 7 Vortex. And one of the maps that he showed me once is the culture of the Maori principles. And it was just like a crystal. So I think all these perspectives, they need to find a common ground, like a common soil. And by having this as a creative canvas, as a creative digital canvas, with the possibility of leveling up the conversation into an ecological one, is where I am. But the main goal was to give locals the power to express themselves without the need of being like completely colonized in their way of thinking, because making them linear is kind of forcing them to think differently from their origin. Some of them, they might do it, some of them not.
Thank you, Hugo. Michaela.
Yes, so if I understand you right, Hugo, the main goal of the 7 Vortex mapping program is to map out organizations based on the energy flow and to create narratives derived from that, where I see a very big potential in communication.
Yeah.
Are there other aspects that I'm missing?
Well, as you know, when you use life principles, it becomes very soon complex in the way that it's a multifunctional design. So once that you fulfill one function, like for example, for organizations, in my case, the original intention was more about mapping ecosystems. But it happens to be that organizations, at some point, they work as ecosystems. But we are pushing them not to work like this with our non-biological understanding. But as we move forward, then we would like them to behave towards homeostasis or syntropy or even chaos in a broader way. So I think it is about mapping things and then not losing this knowledge, because usually this kind of knowledge, you have it in LinkedIn, in Facebook, in Instagram, and they don't really care about your knowledge. They treat what you have as their own mean to boost the energy levels. But then it is difficult for you to get back and to understand and to see where the collective conversations could go. So yes, what I was doing, and so far what I've been doing, is to build this like mycelium for other technologies to flourish on the top of this one. And I think it is important and relevant as what I learned from nature, and it is not in the life principles, it doesn't seem to be, is that you have to be generous and you have to act from a gratitude standing point of being. So first you get with something you offer, then the antenna receives it, and then with some, I think, iterations over a million years, you can create an ecological niche. So how can we have this different conversation, and how can we connect nature knowledge around something, because Google wasn't with this intention either. So who is there like connecting all what I was looking as biomimicry potential in every plant, in every fish, in every bird, and nothing is, it is like addressing this from a holistic perspective, because you have the ones that are connected to databases, which is completely right, like As Nature. So for example, As Nature is just a beautiful implementation of this. And with them, what I'm collaborating is how to enhance each other. So I usually present also As Nature in all my presentations, and they created this specific space for 7-Vortex to live, but they don't have the indigenous knowledge, for example. They don't have a local perspective. And I think it's at some point important to have these local, like personal narratives into the digital realm, because if it's all about just isolated data points, I think we already have a lot. How can we enhance what we have from a new standpoint of technology? Court, please.
Well, I love this. Thank you. And this deeper look into it. And so I know you're already thinking about this kind of stuff. And not to, I don't want to go off topic, so I apologize a bit, but it helps me. So, you know, Bucky said all systems, you know, can be modeled, but they have to have closure, right? They have to exist sort of in 3 space. Otherwise, you don't have enough description for a system. And these edges are all forces or relations. And then these nodes are things you could measure, nouns or things that are measurable. That all fits exactly what you're doing, of course, Hugo. Well, but he also said these corners are all leaky. These are the leaky corners. This is what he called the precession, the extra energy that's left over or the energy that's needed. And so then if 2 systems are coupled together, it's never just a one-way connection, right? Because it wouldn't remain coupled. There's got to be this secondary connection coming back, right? Where something is given on the one and then comes and something else comes back in the other. Like when we have a job or work for an organization, we give something and we get something back in return.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm gonna love to see when your lines, right, have that sort of implicit sort of 2-way, right? Like you and I can't have a relation if it's just you listening to me. That would never work, right? Because you'd be pretty darn soon. You know, so it's all 2-way stuff. So you know what I'm getting at. So I'm looking forward to it, because that's going to be such a huge deal to help with the Bucky teaching when we get to where we're modeling all those things you're showing, the commensalism and all that kind of stuff as, you know, whatever. And then from regeneration, right? If it is just parasitism, well, of course, then if you identify it, you know, that's not regenerative, right? We've got to have enough stuff linked to help. Okay, sorry, too much, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great idea, and I'm so much looking forward to see how it could land. And of course, I would love to do it. So what I was just trying to get sure is that I had the machine power to be able to deploy all these kind of ideas, because sometimes you start more on the facade and to try to show something, and my way was more about integrating development with growth. So when I understood that in the beginning I was a seed and I couldn't be a tree, as I wish, of course. And then I said, okay, so now is the moment to set up how a seed is going to unfold over time. So you want to have the right kind of fibers, or the right kind of a structure, whether it's cellular or with the cortex of the plants. And that's why I use the life principles, but that's why I also went into a digital membrane that will allow me to first have the architecture and the possibilities to scale. So now this technology is being used in artificial intelligence, and it's called Neo4j, and it's graph databases. So just by jumping with them, NASA is using the same database structure. So thanks to them and thanks to creating symbiotic relationships, then now I'm in the top of the game in terms of technology, thanks to them, and not because as a biomimic, I'm not as techy as I look, maybe. I think I don't, like the coding part is not my thing. I come more from business, but I do like the multidisciplinarity. So I love to understand different perspectives and then to try to bring some coherence if possible, and creating something new. So Shashank.
Yeah. Hello, Hugo.
Yeah.
Interesting work. So, if I'm right in understanding, currently the representations of the network are kind of, at least from what I saw, static. Um, is there a dynamic view of the tool that you were showing that shows the actual energy flowing between the different nodes? Because I had seen something. It's I wouldn't say it's similar, but uh, at least visually it seems similar, where it kind of shows like increases in one system, one node decreases the other node, which causes like a rippling effect throughout the network.
Yeah, totally. And I've seen it. So I studied industrial engineering and systems, but system thinking. So I've been familiar with this kind of system simulation software since the 2000. And I remember one that is called IC Stella from IC Systems. And this software is just beautiful for a simulation of systems with entries and outcomes, outputs, everything together. And what comes to my mind when you ask me the question is more like a forest. So I think the 3D representation of what I'm having there is this mycelium and all the forests interconnected in many ways, flowing the energy everywhere. So that will be the visual that comes. And I would love to see something flowing in there, but also, let's say, I imagine even in augmented reality. So you can play with a 3D version of the vortex and let understand the others that it is not even flat as the screen, but it is 3D in many ways. So yes, I'm there, but so far has been all my investment. Now I'm moving more and more towards the market, and I'm glad that regeneration is arrived in a way, because now they're finally asking me for tools that which intention is really to make a difference. So for example, in carbon credits and in green finance. So it is like a big and good news. And I think there is a lot of way forward. So I'm trying to understand how to create a technology in such an easy way that many others could create on the top, like other layers on the top of the technology. But that takes some investment and money that I need to find, and this is what I'm doing now.
Thank you very much, Hugo. Shall we move forward?
Yeah, totally.
And thank you for the lovely questions.
Yeah. So, well, what I wanted to show now is just the other kind of the deliverable that we will have from this exercise. So it is really to let you be able to use 7vortex. So the way that we use it is we go to 7vortex.com, and there this is the website. So I'm gonna log out, so you know what you see when you come in, and you click on join. You get your user. It's free, and then you log in. You can log in with Facebook or LinkedIn. In my case, I prefer this kind of knowledge that I'm mapping that is useful to me to keep it within my own email and out of other connections, but that is up to each one. So I come here, I have my user, and now I can create some of what I call vortex maps, ecosystems. It is really locally attuned and adaptive. So just coming here without the user, you have the access to all these curations. And there are some from, I think, Netherlands. There are others from, well, different places. Now I cannot really know anymore, but they are kind of all in the same topic. So this is, for example, from a project in Panama that we did Virtual Gaia for. So they are representing the whole bamboo ecosystem, but this is done by them. and help them, I believe, in trying to align with all the organizations that are going to be there. And we can unfold it in this way if you want to see it from the center out. So when you want to create something, you click on create. The first one will be just a test and private, and you won't be able to change the title. But the next ones, you will be able to change the title here. So we have the card of the title and we have the card of the bubble. The bubble could have a name. So for example, biomimicry, or let's use this example, humanity. So whether I click on enter here or I put more information, and I can pick an image or put a YouTube video and add a small abstract and a tag if that's the way that I want to connect my information. So now that we have something there, or without having something, we can just drag and drop a line outside, and then you have it. You have the second bubble, and then a third one, and then connect them. So let's say, for example, if we have here the planet. Right now, we're having this relationship of where we're gaining energy from the planet without giving back enough, so to create a positive relationship. So what we want to do, and I would like to see the simulations that you are pushing here, but on how we can create this flow into something positive that helps us as a species to understand that what we are doing is important, and we cannot be moving material and energy just at will, because we are deregulating natural systems that took million or billion of years to be in place. So you can put the argument here with another YouTube video, with another image, and save it. And on this side, we have the tools of edition. So this is the preview mode, the edit mode, where you saw it. And then the curate mode, it is how to place it and how to curate your narrative. So for example, I don't want this one to be so relevant, so I want to make this one. So this is all about humanity instead of the computer telling you exactly what to do, but what do you want to communicate? So if you want to put it like this, and then you can add a color, we have this set of colors as a starting point. And then once that you have it there, you can change it here. So I can create it like red one, or this doesn't have all the logic. But as I said, this is kind of advanced prototype of what I wanted to deliver. But since I'm integrating development with growth, I understand now that I'm becoming a small tree, but not yet a mother tree that I would like to be in the future. So this is kind of the basic, and then you can play with the tools and you can play with all the buttons, and that will show you something. So you can go and visit. Once this one was done by my daughter of 7 years old, 6 and something. And she was just putting about animals and the thoughts on her thoughts on the animals with some links. So I think this could be helpful for education. And there are some things, for example, in Discover, we have collections. So we can come here and see the biomimicry part and to see the material. So here is the superorganism from teaming. And this is content from the author. Well, I did it for her, but as a promotion for the book. So if you are interested, you can go and buy the book, but just seeing the principles around here will trigger your interest in how to behave. So I was talking about the life principles, and these are the principles on superorganisms. So this is what I'm trying to apply to create a more like a social network that fosters collaboration.
We have a question from Nadia Hugo. Would you mind if I read it out loud? Oh, Nadia, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, no problem. And actually, great segue, Hugo, because I worked with Tamsin right as she was publishing that book that you just showed. So my question is around, as an example, say I want to link a thought process or a biomimicry principle or theory to the teaming one, the map that you just showed for superorganisms.
Mhm.
Is there a way to do that using your tools? So is the intention also to bring maybe multiple intentions across the globe and connect them so that we can maybe move in a specific direction? Because right now it looks a little bit siloed, but maybe I misunderstood.
No, I think your question is super relevant. So what I did was to keep adding membranes into the technology because this technology was already there and it was about knowledge. So how can we create something that actually adds value to this knowledge by, for example, putting it on the top of the territory or adding, like, we can create synergies around topics. So let me just show you what is already in the tool. Let me share the screen again.
I mean, even more specifically, say I set up an account and I can go in there and start mapping my own theory or concept that I want to present. Yeah. Can I link it to this one that you're showing here because it's derived from and has a similar intention to Tamsin's superorganisms profile?
Yeah, this is what we're trying to get into. We are not there yet, but okay. What we are doing is, for example, to connect like through an insights engine that is called Hume. We are doing the first steps to recommend you based on your content, other content around that could give you like better insights from another one. So this is the first attempt, and we are also understanding about organizations and countries and so topics. And then the second part that we are doing is to connect the database. So for example, let me just go to one that has a little bit more content. I'm using it as a media here. And so when I click here, it is giving some advice. We are yet to get into the advice, but now it's doing this entity recognition. So you have it like this, and then you can connect a database into this. So for example, when someone is actually talking about teaming, it could be the recommendation of teaming and other people. And so all is connected. And that's why it was so important to have the right architecture behind, because otherwise the scalability will be a problem. But this is what we are trying to sort out where to move into the community in regeneration. So another layer that we have here. Until here you have something, or can I keep? Okay, so this is Virtual Gaia, and Virtual Gaia is the geo space for this project, and it is created in symbiosis with Regenerate in the United States. And the intention is going more through finance compliance with in terms of environment and all what is happening now. So even ESGs, or how do you understand the territory in a different way? So in this case, we are also like putting the geolocation of the vortex and then bringing it here. So now we know for those who have put content with geolocation, we know where they are. So for example, this one I did it for the Biomimicry Institute, and it is here, and I put the address in there. So now we are seeing this, but what I understood from this experiment that wasn't in the initial plans is that actually we need to visualize and have more hope in terms of like our own networks. So how to connect all these networks. And I'm part of some of these. So for example, when we go with the Global Regeneration Collab, so there are these locations that they gave me just as an experiment to see where are in the world. Then we add the donut economics layer, and then we see them as well. Then the regenerative communities networks with Capital Institute and John Fullerton in bioregion. Then the ecosystem restoration camps from John DeLue all over the world, kind of thing that's happening here. The biomimicry global networks, and you might be around.
I could
So-
simply search for a particular keyword or intention through the 7 Vortex website and see what's out there
No,
already.
not yet. And this is the beauty of what is coming, that now the information is somehow connected, and we are exactly in this space and moment in time where we know where we are heading, we know what is needed. And I think some doors are gonna open, but this is like the state of the art, if you wanna call it. Cutting edge is cutting edge. So we are doing it at the time that we are sharing. So this is I think a beautiful perspective on our movement, if you want to call it, or community, or what we are doing to try to make a positive impact in the planet. It is everywhere and it is happening. So how can we use this as an input to connect different siloed networks and to make them collaborate in between them? So this is what I've been trying to understand after being in nature. Then I deep dive into the digital. And I've been kind of in the matrix for many years, just really seeing digital things. And now I'm building the bridge in between both, but I'm emerging and I'm just there. Is there any other question?
I was just thinking, you know, that Biomimicry Switzerland mapped all biomimicry related initiatives in Switzerland and just around. I think that should be on there as well. If there's a way of, you know, pastoring it from the, I'm not very familiar with it, from the database they have and put it on 7 Vortex. I think that'd be great.
I completely agree. And they're open to, well, this information came from them. I called them and I asked them to put it in Virtual Gaia, to Beth specifically. And they are super nice and always willing to collaborate. So what I did with them, I think is very relevant, because it is also about before. So they were supporting also 7 Vortex, and they were curious about to see themselves mapped into a vortex. But it was very interesting in many ways as experiment. But you can find it here as a global ecosystem, and it's open, it's collaborative, but it is tricky now because it became too big. So it is kind of well, that's the limit of the visual technology until now. It's around 1,000 bubbles. So this is from like a survey that we did, and taking also the biomimicry frontrunners and what Richard did in UK, and just like it was a melting pot of different databases that I created manually for the institute. But what it was really relevant, well, Switzerland should be around there. As I said, it becomes kind of difficult, but let me make the point that I wanted. So I'm gonna go to the view mode. It depends how you select it, but as I said, this is the big one. So I'm gonna go to other topics. So when I was doing the interview, whether if you have a survey, you just have some specific entries, but you don't see the emergence of the community. So I propose them to do this on a call basis and study basis, just to see how far we can get. And what we realized is that by doing it like this, we had the opportunity to integrate questions to the survey on its way of being. So it was interesting to see what kind of other topics are doing the biomimics that we interviewed at that time. And they are about bioeconomy, bioremediation, natural capital, economics, biophilia. And then you see the connections of this. So right now, it is really more about how to run better analytics on the information that we have, so we can create this opportunity of fostering collaboration in between the members. But let's say that it is very unique perspective to see it from different entry points. So for example, I have Canada, or let me put countries, and then we see if Switzerland is around. So I can use the search box. but I don't see everything. Here, Switzerland. And Switzerland has 13 connections. But that was the understanding that I was having at that time. So you can start them and just go through one bubble. Like what I feel is that getting to this level of details, it is very human, but it is not in the computers. So that's why we need from each other.
We have a comment in the chat from Keith. Keith, would you like to unmute yourself and just share what you wrote?
Not really, because I didn't, it's not a question. You asked me to put in my inputs, so I just put in an input.
Okay.
I am writing, is this all manual or I've been using Kumu. I'm about to spend a lot of time learning a lot more about Kumu, and it's like, okay, can I feed a lot of data into it? I don't know much about warm data, but that's definitely something that I'm interested in. How does this become smarter? I mean, if you look at Humberto Maturana.
Humberto Maturana.
Yeah, and I'm just newly into him since about a month, learning something there. I'm really curious about how it becomes alive, you know, because his what I'm really coming aware of is that basically my household is living in many ways, and I'm influencing it through my skin, through my voice, through all the various aspects of being alive in this house. And therefore the health of my house is also generating my health. And we know this. And so how do we start? It's not that we need to model very much of this. It's, you know, I mean, how much is really enough? But would be really good to be able to gain a lot of quality in certain specific questions. And I'm really curious about that, you know, because yes, you can spend time in nature and really marvel at the impeccable order and richness and complexity. And we never even get close to the name models we touch.
No.
What's cool is that we can sense and we can maybe even dance this. Meadows said. So I'm curious about this. I mean, is there a way to put in dynamic feeds? Is there a way to really start tapping to make this thing, to make a model come alive? Or am I just doing manual? And then that's based on my gut feelings and my subjective impressions. And until I go out and verify every single connection with all the people in this room, it's kind of bullshit.
Yeah. Well,
my perspective, you know. So
yeah, I think I really appreciate the question, and I understand it in a better way after your explanation, I hope. So regarding Kumu, I also respect a lot their intention, because they come from this sustainability idea, and they were real, or at least that's what I've read. I never met them, and I just wanted to go into the details of using it, and I wasn't able to be very proficient in using Kumu. So it might be one of my handicaps, but I'm not so good at computers in general. So I'm looking for something that it was easy. So I didn't have the need to code a graph database, but I was able to input knowledge into a graph database. So I thought that my bet was to have a native AI graph database. So from there, being able to explore what the possibilities are. But if you didn't have it connected in the proper way, the possibilities were going to be diminished in a great way. So somehow I sacrificed many features for going to the tech side, to the technology side. And I just built whatever I needed for expressing myself, and the basic for collaboration. So some specific roles, because my understanding is that you need to prove the functionalities of different things while you are developing a technology. And I'm in this stage where, like Virtual Gaia, I wish you can just put your data, your network, and then you visualize it. And of course, that would be awesome. And of course, it would be awesome to gather the information from there and having access. Since I'm not a coder, my perspective, this didn't start in that place. So it was more about sharing, about not having a paywall, and about building after a while, like trying to become a mother tree. And I think as a mother tree, I immediately embedding the generosity part, because you gotta add value to the whole ecosystem, which I don't understand yet exactly how to do it, but I did my best to be ready for any moment in the present that I'm being able to live. So with Kumu, I saw that they were very focused on databases and how to make a graph out of a database. And that wasn't at all my flow of information. I was really from biomimicry trying to make my nature journal and how to connect what I had without losing it from a bigger company. Because this is not my first attempt. I did the blog, I did the Posterous, I did Delicious, and they were both acquired by Yahoo or by Facebook. And then they gave you back your seed file code after you spend so much time learning all these things. And for me, it is like not anymore. So at least I'm gonna try to stick this knowledge, because it seems that we have a lot of fat in terms of digital information, and connected in a way that could allow us to see it differently. Right now, I'm completely open. The good news is that the investment becomes from my family, like internally, my wife and myself. So there are no other owners, so we can keep the values of our family inside what we are doing. So I think that is a good news for the future, because we can keep the ethos and the essence of what we are doing, because we didn't create a business to resell it, but to try to be multi-generational and keep adding value after that.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for the question.
It's slightly after 7, and maybe some of you would like to go. Hugo, would you like to add some last words, or are there last questions? But before that, we at the Biomimicry Society Switzerland have a colleague who is called Marina, and she's raising some funds to create her partnership based on biomimicry game. And she's missing $175 to reach her goal. The link is in the chat. It's from We Make It. So in case you would like to help us, to help her create her biomimicry-based game on partnerships, you're welcome to donate as little or as much as you can. She's missing only 175. Hugo, up to you. The floor is yours.
Well, let's collaborate with her, I think. So let me just try to get back. So what I'm doing right now with this tool is to build it as a digital membrane. And this is the current status of also where I'm working. And I think that will be closer to what you have in mind, Nadia, because it is more into that domain. So let me try to present myself now that you know a little bit more. So our company is 7 Vortex, and it has been created by Camille and myself, my wife and myself and me, as a life project. So we switch from a professional project to a life project. And I think our basic intention is just to find harmony between ourselves and our habitats. And intention is more into the creative healing. So we want to use our creativity and our, let's say, building an imagination power into healing. And we consider that by doing this and following all the life principles, we are a regenerative business and technology. Again, but aligned with life. And this is something I would say not completely different from what you shared with us, Court. But for me, a system, although you see the barriers, it seems that it is going as far as it can. So maybe the barriers are not the ones that he foresee or she foresee in the early beginning. So I think I like this idea of the mycelium and being there. And just for you to know that the tools that you saw, one is the Vortex, the other one is Virtual Gaia, but we have also the impact evaluation and the Hive, the community Hive. So what I'm gonna share is this opportunity from the Hive. So let me see, where is this presentation? This is more than enough. So with 7 Vortex and the whole thing in family as a live project, we have participated with one or many companies. And this is one of the examples with Ashoka and Walmart of an impact evaluation for their foundation. So taking the visuals of the 3 rings, we saw that we can follow performance over time. And we slice it into the activating agency, the project itself, the funders, the community, and the individual. Then we did 7 Vortex as platform, and 7 Vortex now has reached page views from 160 countries and 4,619 cities. Although it's very manual, so it is not really about the database of fun. And some of these people have used it and have taken advantage of the tool, which I love it and I really appreciate it. So this is more a thank you for them for quoting on us and for using it. And we respect a lot what they are doing. So it is kind of a proud, it's a big proud for us to have them in between the comments. So Daniel Wald, Kate Raworth, John DeLew, John Fullerton, Janine Benius as well from the MIT. So these are the examples of organizations that could be used, like the mapping that you saw, the geoversity in Virtual Gaia, so as a geolocation, as a bioregion, and then understanding the entry points of this. And then we have also something that is the Hive, that we are building it for Costa Rica Regenerativa. So with this one, we are building a tool that will allow them to have their own voice as a locals. And you could see a report and you can see the 3 rings. So the idea is to, sorry, let me see it here. I touch on the right button. So how can we become a digital membrane for this project so they can connect with the cryptocurrency, regenerative cryptocurrency that is seeds or joinseeds.earth or seeds.earth, I think they changed. Blue Marble evaluation as one or many types of taxonomies of evaluation. The donut economics, as a membrane, you have to transport, communicate, and be on the safety part. So I think this is what we do in terms of more bigger business with maybe development banks or as a country, for example, to connect some remote sensing and AI and other technologies into evaluation. So this is an experiment on the SDGs. So imagine if you can gather information around the SDGs and then doing something as a system that you can see the performance over time. And if we can make this as for each country to be like the dashboard, then we will be able to understand where do they come from and where are they going maybe. So this is something that it was developed in 2009. And the specific example with the SDGs in 2015 for a presentation in Germany that I did. So if we can use our sensors to really sense better and see our health, our organizations, our countries, our watersheds from a different perspective, I think lots of opportunities will open from there. So we want to represent this kind of new generation business and new generation technology that was completely born in biomimicry. So of course there is a lot of room for improvement, but we are representing a whole different DNA. So we are patient, we're gonna keep working hard and until the life allows us, right? Because we are here and then the day after you might not be around. So whatever we can leave for others to keep building on the top, I think is needed. And doing this pathway, this journey, I have found so many great people, and I think all the solutions are there. It is just really a matter of collaborating better, behaving as a performing ecosystem. But yeah, I hope that this is adding at least some elements to the narrative that we're trying to bring into the markets. If that's okay, and if we understood a little bit about ecosystems and collaboration, I'm glad. I hope you have understood also about 7 Vortex, but it is a curation tool, a storytelling tool. So if you want to put more databases on this for the moment, is whether Kumu or Neo4j, like as for something bigger. And for creativity, I think it is going to be super helpful, all the set of tools that we are putting together, because we need to understand reality with different lenses. And biology is there, it's kind of the reaching point. So how can we enhance this kind of conversation? So thank you for holding the space with me.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Hugo. It has been a pleasure listening to you. It has been a pleasure discovering what you're working on and how are you thinking about stuff. A real pleasure. Thank you very much on behalf of all of us from the Biomimicry Association, on behalf of all our guests. We wish you all the best and keep us posted. Dear audience, we will not be having a webinar in July. We will be going to the seaside or the mountains because we are having a break, and we will be back in August, right, Venetia? Yes. So that's all from us. Thank you for coming. Do come in August again, and stay healthy, happy, and do think and do biomimicry.